Welcome. Welcome. I'm Nick Rishwain. Welcome to Blab Lawyers, or Legal Tech on Blab.
And I'm Ivan Raiklin.
Ivan Raiklin out of DC, and we're here tonight with Chris Grimm, who is the creator, developer of Designation Station. And he's here to tell us exactly. Now, I should note that I am not a practicing attorney. Ivan, if you want to put your own disclaimer out there.
Neither am I. But I am a certified attorney in the state of New York, just in case I need to practice.
Excellent. Excellent. And Chris is going to tell us exactly what Designation Station does and where he came up with it. And it looks like, I tried watching the demo, Chris. I did watch the demo a couple of times, I should say. And because I've been out of the actual practice for so long and dealing with, when I was doing stuff, when I was a clerk, depositions weren't all digital at the time. So please tell us exactly what Designation Station is and what you guys do.
Sure. So in order to give a little bit more background information so that people understand what I'm talking about, typically the way it works is when an attorney takes a deposition, they film the deposition nowadays, and you get the transcript. And so the way the transcript is set up is there's typically 25 lines or so on a page. And what happens is the transcript gets synchronized to the video. And what that means is that it gets time stamped so that when you see or hear, rather, something happening in the video, you'll see the associated text with it. And what that enables you to do is to search for text and then quickly jump to that point in the testimony in the video so that you can play the video back. Because otherwise you'd have to sit through the video and watch the whole thing, which would take forever. So that's kind of the premise, and that's how things kind of start out. What the process gets a little bit more technical after that. And,
okay.
What happens is there's two ways that people typically use that video, right? So there's one is impeachment purposes, where if the witness is on the stand and they say something different than what they've testified to previously, then you can impeach them. And the other way to do it is if a witness is unable to show up for court for whatever reason, you can just play their video back in lieu of their live testimony. So that's kind of how the deposition process works, and for our purposes, how that goes. Now, it starts to get a little bit complicated because what ends up happening is the attorneys will designate their affirmative designations for a specific witness on a specific day, and then the other side will get a chance to counter those designations and make their own designations to sort of rebut that. And sometimes, you can rebut the rebuttal and so on and so forth. So it usually involves people looking at all these transcripts, and there's a bunch of different ways that people do it. To give a little bit background about myself,
please,
before I kind of jump into this, I was a trial tech for over 10 years, and what that means is doing presentations in court, doing all the video and the documents and pulling that up and setting up all the technology. So that's kind of where I fit into this process.
Okay.
So I'm usually working with the legal teams in court and out of court to get everything ready for presentations the next day.
Okay.
So a lot of people have a lot of different ways that they go about doing this process. And one of the most common is that they'll print out a hard copy of the transcript and they'll hand it to an attorney. The attorney will go through and highlight manually on that transcript and then hand it back to someone. From there, it usually either gets entered into some piece of software or it gets typed out numerically, and the designation numbers will get input into like a spreadsheet or a Word file or something like that. And that's where things start to get a little crazy.
Cumbersome.
Yes, exactly. So as you know, anytime you enter data into something and you're typing, there's bound to be errors. There's bound to be, typos and things like that. There's always formatting issues. So people are entering this information and it's not always consistent. Again, it's not always accurate, and there's always the potential for problems. And so what we do is we handle all of those different kinds of information whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or whatever. And we quickly format it and like zero fill things and, do all the formatting. And it'll check the designation sets for errors, which right now isn't something that many other applications do, if any other application. And it's doing that on very specific sets of criteria. And the reason that we started doing this is just because of like I said, the situation where we had a bunch of depositions and we had a bunch of designations come in, and people want to see the transcript, maybe a highlighted version of it so they can quickly see what they've designated. They want to know how long it is. A lot of times people have specific time regulations, like, tomorrow in court, we only have an hour or whatever. So they've got to keep it under an hour for that witness.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, a lot of time spent. And it's usually between the legal team and the litigation support or the trial presentation consultant. And there's a lot of back and forth. So what this aims to do is a couple things. One is that it cleans up your data instantly and it gets it into near perfect condition. It's going to give you the opportunity to remove overlaps and duplicate designations, which if you've got a bunch of attorneys working on the same set of data, that is an issue sometimes where people both see the same line and they're like, oh, yeah, that looks great. And so everybody's kind of designating the same stuff. But when you're putting that video together to play in court, you don't want to have the same thing play a bunch of different times because it wastes everybody's time to watch it. And similarly, when you're doing the video and you're editing the video, you may have designations from the other side that sort of overlap with yours. And again, you don't want to have duplicate testimony being played back. So this program allows you to find those errors, clean things up. It also allows you to instantly see run times where you're not kind of going back and forth with the consultant to spending a lot of time doing that. And it gives you error reports and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was noticing in the demo that, one of the things that I liked was the different, I can view it when you guys do this transcript, right? I get a deposition transcript as an attorney. I send it to you, and then what do you do from that point? How does that work? I saw it's $99 per transcript.
Yeah. So the way it works is you upload a transcript, and you don't have to upload a transcript because you can just put in the designations if you want. It takes two different types of transcript files. One is a text transcript, and the other is an MDB transcript, which contains that time code information. If you put in the MDB, you're going to get a little bit more functionality in the sense that you can see the run times. If you just do the text file, it's okay because you can still spit out highlighted PDFs and things like that. Okay.
All right. And I like that. That was one of the things that I really liked when I was watching the demo was the highlighting, because that was the nightmare every time I had to do some summation of a deposition, right? You got to do different colors. I had to think, all right, what kind of color log am I going to use so that I can highlight the more important parts of this deposition, so then I can go and report back to the lead attorney as to what he needs to know in this deposition.
Exactly. And one of the things, too, I'll mention in regard to that is when you do have a highlighted transcript like that and you're kind of doing your work like that, so you're looking at a version of it and you're doing these highlights, if you get updates to those designations, currently if you're doing in that process, you've got to go through and look at all those highlights and see if anything's changed. If you don't know specifically what changes have been made, then you're spending a lot of time looking at things, double checking it, seeing if it's accurate, and trying to figure out what's changed. And with our software, we've kind of shifted that in the sense that once you have those numbers, it's actually quicker to just redo the entire thing rather than trying to go through and look at every single page in line to see if something's different. You can just redo the whole project in a matter of seconds.
Interesting. This is so your pitch then to law firms and attorneys and so forth, or insurance companies who usually have counsel for insurance defense counsel. I'm imagining when my cousin told me about this group that he's now working for, Designation Station, which kind of led us to this point. He asked, we talked about it a little bit, and I thought you're probably going to want to target insurance defense attorneys, because they have so many depositions that they go through in trying to defend against some medical malpractice and slip and fall, any sort of negligence type of case. Who else do you guys see? Is that your kind of main target now, do you know, or is there a wider variety of personal injury attorneys? I would also assume would benefit from this time-saving software.
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, it's pretty much anybody that does this this process that handles depositions, is preparing for trial, or trying to organize their designations. In terms of occupations, lawyers, paralegals, and trial technicians, I think, are the main folks that would really benefit from this. And again, it's something to me that people are still going to do manually, and it's basically automating this manual process. So it really comes down to a time savings where you're kind of freeing up some of those hours that you would spend doing this. It's able to do it quickly, it's able to do it accurately, and it's just going to save you some headache,
Yeah, and in my mind, those who are working on contingency basis are a great target for a system like this. Spend the $99 now, but how many hours do you save?
Exactly.
That is your time and your money that's going into this case right now.
Exactly. Another thing that we've seen too that's very beneficial is a lot of folks have very controlled ways of entering their own data. So when you're working with your team, obviously you've got a great process in place. That process doesn't always apply to when you receive designations from the other side. A lot of times it can be last minute. It can be them throwing you a curveball and saying, we've changed some things. You want to know what they've done. You want to see how long they're planning on taking the next day in court, so you can plan accordingly. When you get that data at 11 o'clock the night before, it's usually a scramble. I mean, I know that I've got work to do for my team, and now I've got to handle, this additional work that's come in and dealing with responding to something else that somebody just dumped on us. This is a perfect time to use this application where you can sift through that data, see exactly what it looks like, get your highlighted transcripts, get it all together, and get it in the format that people want to see it in.
So now, if I were practicing and I had a transcript that I wanted to submit to you guys, are you saving this information in the cloud? Is it a software package I have to buy? How does that work?
Sure. So it's in the cloud. You basically sign up. When you sign up, there's an administrator, and you are the administrator when you sign up. And you can add as many people to that account as you'd like. And there's 3 different tiers where you've got different permissions, and they basically revolve around what projects people can see, like project access and user access. So certain people can see all of the projects and they're able to add new people to the cases. Certain people can only add people that are already part of their team to a specific case. And then there's like a very basic user where they just log in and can only see the projects that they're granted access to.
Okay. So if I'm, a personal injury attorney and I've got my account with you guys, I can literally look at every transcript I've ever submitted to you. Is that how that works?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And actually that's a good point there. So one of the other things that the software does is that we do archive versions of designations as well. So anytime that things are processed, which means that, duplicates are removed, overlap is removed, and designations are put together, the version that before that version gets changed is placed into an archive. So you can always revert back to it if need be. And also it does the same thing when you produce a highlighted transcript. when you do collect a highlighted transcript, all the designations that were used to generate that are stored in the archive.
Excellent. Ivan's playing around with the interface here and giving us from your website, what is Designation Station. Ivan, you have any questions? I know you're playing around with your. You're not going to submit anything
at this point. No, I'm more interested because obviously this is totally outside of my lane in terms of any practice that I've been involved in. I've been transactional, and so contracts.
Okay.
So I have not done trial work, but
I'm getting to your a question. I'm sure I'm sure you want to ask.
Which is what?
Competitors in the field.
That was my first question. And then also just the backstory, kind of like what got you into this, a little bit more detail, and what got you. But absolutely, yeah. Well, what are the competitors? We'll kick off with that since you mentioned it, Nick.
We do a lot of legal tech and legal startup on this show, and when we have hosts or guests, so we often like to see what's the field like.
Right.
Yeah, and then what differentiates you? Because obviously everybody's a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say there's a couple different pieces of software out there. They're kind of on either side of us. I don't think that anybody's trying to do specifically what we are doing. We're pretty specific in terms of our focus. I've worked with a lot of the different applications that exist out there. There's like Case Notebook, there's Opus 2, and then on the other side of the spectrum, there's like Trial Director and OnCue and all these trial presentation softwares. And they're all very good at what they do. The reason that I put this together was because none of them specifically did this. And I certainly wouldn't have wasted my time, doing this if there was already a way to do it. I mean, I spent a lot of time just figuring out little batch files here and there to sort of automate some of these processes that I found myself like doing very repetitiously. And they just started adding up, and it just got to the point where I was able to sort of execute all these small little batch files, and I needed something more robust that would kind of put it all together. And then that's where I started looking into, a better programming language than MS-DOS. And once I did that and I learned a little bit more, then I was able to kind of put everything in a more linear fashion and kind of string things together to sort of consolidate those tools. And then, once we kind of figured out that this was working the way that I had originally intended it to, and I was able to use it on cases and really see and realize that time savings, then at that point, it was just kind of like, yeah, this is something that needs to keep being developed and worked on, and we need to keep making it better. And I think we've done just that. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I was noticing that, when I went to the demo the first time when Pablo said that he was working with you guys now, and I thought, well, this is so niche.
Yeah.
So narrow as to this is applying to your depositions that I wondered what the competition was like out there. And you say a lot of people are doing other stuff, but nobody was really focusing on this at the.
Yeah, and I could break it down a little bit more for you too. The biggest problem that I see with these other applications is that the way that they handle the input of data is usually through highlighting a transcript. And when you're highlighting a transcript, if you're doing it physically or if you're doing it on a screen, it's a manual process, right? The other way to do it is to take the numbers that apply to those page and line numbers and put them into the software, and then let the software sort of automate that for you. And these applications can do that to a point. The problem with them is that everything has to be perfect before you do that, and it has to be formatted. And to take the time to go through and do all that formatting, even once you get the formatting correctly, it doesn't look at the content. So even if all your numbers are right and you're sure of that and everything gets put in correctly, there still could be duplicative testimony. There still could be overlapping testimony. The other thing that we haven't really talked about is it also puts designations together. And to me, that's a big thing too, because if you've got a designation that ends here and starts here, why not just make it one designation? You're dealing with less data, and typically that happens when you're going across pages. The problem with splitting it up by pages is that you may have an answer or a question that's, in the middle of it on one page and it goes on to the next page. If that designation is split in two, then for my purposes, I need to put that together so that I can create one cohesive video, so that's something else that it does do. So this was the application for me. This was my dream application that would, take all this information and just clean it the way that I needed it to be clean, check for errors in the way that I needed it to check for errors specific to each transcript, and allow me to set certain parameters in my error checking, and be able to combine things the way that I need it to, and kind of like big picture, put it all together in a matter of seconds, and then be able to extract it out. So it's really easy to get your data in, and it's really easy to get your data out. And to me, that was one of the biggest flaws that I saw in some of the other software that's out there.
Yeah, and tell me, when you were working as kind of trial support or trial consulting, you're talking about taking data out to do what with it? What were you doing with it as a non-attorney? Were you putting it into a big cardboard or a poster board thing? So what type of presentations were they doing with it that you needed to take it out?
Sure. So the way that it works for me is I get the data sort of at the end, and I'll take it and put it into a trial director or something like that, which is a trial presentation software. And then I have to edit the video. So the editing of the video is typically the last step. You don't want to edit something if there's, if it's 2 hours, typically I wouldn't spend the time to edit a 2-hour video when we really need to get it down to an hour, because, there's an hour of wasted time in there. So.
Right. And you can tell how long it's been since I've been involved in any sort of a trial presentation, because I'm still talking about cardboard, and you're talking about trial director. So, or the big poster board exhibits that I don't know if those are even still used.
They are.
Are they? Okay. All right. Ivan's got a question here. Is the content in designation still primarily text, or are you seeing more audio, video, animation? What is the percentage? I don't know if you can. Are you talking about the deposition designation? I'm assuming is mostly text, or all text.
Well, the transcripts are all text, obviously. Most of them.
But what I'm getting at is it all still submitted via text, or are you taking an audio recording of the deposition and then including it into the record, and then in addition to that, adding the transcript, or is it still just text?
So the way
sometimes, one other thing to add on to the question is, sometimes while you're discussing something, maybe there's an exhibit, what normally is an exhibit that could add to the value of the discussion, which is an actual artifact that would be relevant to the case that is with the person being deposed. So then you could have a picture or even a video recording of that, instead of having to explain this is 2 inches long, 3 inches. You can just look at it. So that's kind of where I'm going with the question.
Sure.
Okay.
And so that's really dealing with court procedure. Typically what we see is that, when you play back testimony in court, you'll submit a video file to the court afterwards that contains all of the video that you played. You'll also submit a transcript. Sometimes in bench trials, a lot of the judges don't want to see the video. They'll just read the transcript because they can do it so much quicker than sitting there and watching 10 hours of deposition testimony. In that cases, they'll require the highlighted PDF versions of it. And I think most of them take the page and line numbers as well, and require that. I mean, that's just from my understanding of it. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know specifically, but.
Okay. Sorry, I got a text there from somebody who's watching, so I'm going to answer this quickly. Mary Jean, it looks like you are on the app, so there should be a little home button in the down at the right, where if you click on the home button, it'll bring up and allow you to tweet it out. All right.
Perfect.
But she's on an Android, so I'm not sure. I haven't used the Android application, but thank you for joining us.
I'll take a look. see how it works on an Android.
Excellent. This is excellent. So how long have you, Designation Station, how long have you guys been up and running?
We officially opened the doors, I think about 3 or 4 months ago. I've been working on it for a couple of years now, trying to get things, in order and working quickly.
So are you guys my cousin had told me that it was sort of a subsidiary of another company, or is it an independent firm? How is that? Are you guys looking for investors at this point?
Sure.
Is it in the?
So we're an independent
Tell me
company.
a little bit about that.
We kind of grew out of the Focal Point, which is a litigation support / trial graphics firm in Oakland. That was where I was employed when I started working on this stuff. So that's kind of where our main crew came from. But
okay. And how is the growth right now? How are you guys marketing and because again, I keep going back to it. It's a very narrow focus, which I think it's great. It's one transcript, $99. It's that simple. There's not an ongoing fee. So, but how are you getting your name out there to firms and those who would use this service?
I'm not going to lie, it's tough. We're trying to contact people that we've worked with previously. We're trying to reach out to folks on social media and sites like this to try to get the word out there and let people know that this is a thing, and we think that people will be happy with it, and it fills a gap that currently exists in the process. And to me, it's just a matter of getting the word out there, and letting people see what it is and play around with it a little bit. So,
excellent.
Okay. Now, have you looked at some of the other podcasters that are out there that could potentially be have a following that would be interested in this particular product?
I haven't done too much research into it. It is a pretty specific thing. I mean, it is sort of legal tech. I think that it's a pretty broad spectrum of things that could be applied to. But I haven't done a ton of research into it, no.
Okay. Yeah, because as you know, I mean, lawyers traditionally are very conservative in adopting technology. So definitely. This is probably something that you still would need to advertise through traditional channels, which are pretty cumbersome and costly. Yeah. And obviously, you're like the National Law Review or something, like journals at the national level, or purchase an advertisement, obviously, in like your ABA journal or whatnot, or maybe not ABA journal, more specific in whatever trade publication there is for trial lawyers.
And I'm gonna add to that. I don't believe that any of and this comes because I work in an online marketing, legal related firm, and I think don't do print advertising in any way. That's so expensive, and it's not going to get your name out there. I can show you the stack of legal journals sitting on the counter at my office that come in and go back there. So ABA journal online, maybe I might, something like that. But it is definitely, it's difficult. It's so difficult to get attorneys to make a change, when they're so ingrained in the way that they do things.
I mean, I'm kind of optimistic. I think that we're seeing a lot of younger attorneys that are obviously much more comfortable using computers and kind of want to take control of that process and do things online or, on through this a specific piece of software that they're comfortable using.
Actually, I just came up with a couple ideas. So there's about 3 or 4 companies that I've identified that are in the they're essentially in the sharing economy space, where you're able to post your freelance legal experience to find clients. As a matter of fact, we had one of them on the show called Congo, and there's also a legal Hero, as well as
Legal Robot on too, right? Legal Robot.
Yeah, legal Robot. But you could potentially, for a low cost, buy out ads or maybe do some sort of a barter system with them to really start getting your name out and positioning yourself with those companies, because they're fairly early stage. Mm-hmm. Another one that comes to mind, I was engaging with them, and I also got a voicemail a couple of days ago. I still need to follow up with them. But at the end of the day, these are companies where an attorney goes on the platform, creates their thanks, Nick. That creates their profile, what level of experience they have, and then when they're available, similar to Upwork, Odesk, Fiverr, and then a client that's seeking an attorney with a particular expertise can then reach out to him for a consultation, and then potentially hire him on an ad hoc basis based on both parties' time commitment / availability.
Right.
And Ivan, where were you at where you ran into the guys from Congo and Legal Robot? You were in San Francisco at a legal startup kind of.
Right. So
you guys seem to be a little further along than some of these others, but where was that? What do you remember what that conference was?
That was at Launch Scale. And so you have a bunch of different startups that go into the launch. What is it? The launch pit. It's basically like a pit of different startups that are showing their wares, either discussing them or bringing a little bit of demo. And then you have people that are taking a look at it, whether it's angel investors, VCs, interested parties, and then other founders or just general population that is interested in tech. And that's usually their first opportunity or first experience in showing their product, because it goes from inception to most of those are pre-seed, all bootstrapped.
Right.
But a few of them are already, have been funded.
Yeah.
Like the company Butterfly was out there, and they're doing very well.
And are you guys in kind of doing it bootstrap? You kind of grew out of the other place, and are you trying to bootstrap it and get known amongst the firms and others who might use you kind of through a traditional marketing and sales?
Yes. Yeah.
Avenues?
And, it's a little bit different, I think, when you have a product and you're able to get users on board. And I'm cautiously optimistic that, word will spread a little bit once people use it. I know that once I started using it, obviously I'm partial to it, but once I started using it, I couldn't think of another way to do it. It's just kind of like, why would I ever go back to doing it a different way now that I've got this tool? And I know that some of the other folks that I've spoken with that have used it sort of feel similar,
Yeah.
But it's tough getting people on board the first time. So
yeah. So are you guys pounding the pavement right now, or making? You are, yeah. And how about who has been early adopters for you guys? Has it been insurance defense? Is there a particular area of law that has been an early adopter?
I don't think so. I mean, I think civil litigation probably, the kind of firms that have larger cases, larger case loads and more witnesses to deal with. Those are the people I would suspect that probably would benefit the most, because I think that the more data you put into it, obviously it's kind of a scale thing. You can do the same sort of thing just as quickly with 10 people as you can with 5. So it does add up, and it ends up being a much bigger time savings on something like that. Right.
Yeah, we find I'll say that I found the same thing being in the law-related field, that our early adopters are generally, you mentioned this a few minutes ago, generally younger attorneys, because we're online, and it's hard to get the guys at my dad's age or in between the 50 and 70 age range to really adopt these newer tools.
Yeah,
can be. It's not always
Facebook?
true.
What's Facebook?
It's not always true. We know that Mitch Jackson and others like him are great at early adopting, but there is a range there where it's pretty difficult to get them to adopt. Ivan, you had another question?
Yeah, Mitch Jackson's killing it. He's like the streaming lawyer who totally, he's definitely somebody to keep track of in the space.
Yeah, I'll put his handle in here in case you guys will probably want to. And
maybe he could be a brand ambassador or something.
He loves those who are disrupting the legal field, especially. So that's his Twitter handle there. You may want to follow him.
I do have a couple of questions. So I posted it up there. It's how big is your team? How is it broken down? And then the follow-up or a corollary to that is, what are some of the tools that you use to build up your team and then essentially manage your company?
Well, so we're pretty small. Right now, I handle most things. We do have a marketing person that we're working with, a consultant, and we do have a market outreach person. And I am also working with a team of developers. So I'm sort of making sure that, the train's on the tracks and it's moving forward and everybody's happy and everything's functioning as it should be. And, then we've got a couple of people that are trying to get the word out.
So you got, how big's the development team then to be able to build this thing out?
I think it's 2 or 3 people. It's nothing crazy.
Now, did you develop the software initially yourself?
Yeah.
Are you a programmer or coder at all, or did you kind of have to get some of those involved with you, like I would have to?
I am not a programmer. Yeah. I did have some free time, and I like doing it, so I picked it up enough to be able to program what I needed to. The original sort of version I had of this was more of a command line, application on my desktop that I used to process the data. It wasn't pretty, but it got the job done. And then from there, we were able to sort of build up and, make it look good, put a nice user interface together and add stuff on.
I love it. I love how these things come together, and it's like it's figuring it out, making it work slightly, and then just bootstrapping to the next level. I love how that works.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show. I mean, that was one of the things that I just couldn't take it anymore in terms of that there was no way to get from point A to point B, and I was determined to figure that out, and I think we did a good job of doing that. So. That's
how innovation works. Ivan, again, look at you. You're rolling now.
Yeah. So last question on my end, and if I see a couple people jumping in here, who's in the house? We got Nikki and
Mary Jean.
Mary Jean's still in here. So that'll be my last question. If you guys want to jump in, please do. Basically, I kind of mentioned that before. What are you using to stay abreast of the industry, whether it's like journals, websites, or to basically build out what you're working on?
Sure. I would honestly say working in the industry and experience. I mean, just when I'm sort of developing this, even continuing to work and put things into it and using it to actually do the same job that I've been doing, and building off of those tools, it gives me more ideas and things like that to stay on top of what I'm trying to do and ways to make things more efficient. In terms of things that are outside of my area, I would say mostly it's a lot of word of mouth and publications. Like there are a lot of great ones out there that have a lot of good stuff that you can read about new products that are coming out and things like that. But really, for me, it's just kind of being out there and seeing what's the problem, what could a potential solution look like, does anybody have it, and just kind of building off of that. I think experience is such a big thing, and if you take yourself out of it, obviously things move right past you. So
excellent. This is great. Yeah, I don't know that I have many more questions, but I'm just in you may have something more you want to add, like what we didn't cover that you think we need to know. I'm going to type Ivan, can you put Designation Station in the chat one more time? You'll have the ability.
The Twitter handle or the what?
That's the Twitter and DesignationStation.com. The other thing that I'd say is, if you can reuse this video, you'll have the link. It'll be available at Nick J. Rishwain on Blab. It'll be available at Raiklin on Blab. So if you want to if you want to shoot that link out to people, if it'll help describe anything to them, you can do that. That's a nice thing. We
have a question.
Do we?
We do.
Excellent. Oh, Nikki. Oh, good. Nikki asked a good question. How are you different from Legal Shield, if you're familiar with Legal Shield?
I am not familiar with Legal Shield, but I could take a quick look at it.
I'm not familiar with it.
That's why I changed over.
Let me just...
As she asked a question, LegalShield.com. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, legal.
When you want to talk, your law firm is ready.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, Legal Shield is different, Nikki. It looks like it's like it's a way to retain an attorney. Yeah, if you're a member, then you have access to attorneys that completely different. This is a way to this is different. This allows you to work on your depositions and get designations on depositions specifically. So, completely different company.
Thank you for asking, because we didn't know.
None of us were aware of it. Yeah.
Boom. Good question.
They do that as well because they have firms on staff. It sounds like this is in the cloud, all software driven.
Yeah, it seems like theirs is manual. So on the front end, you do the request, but then it's done it manually. I'm assuming. I don't know if you know a little bit more about it. If you don't mind jumping in, you could.
Yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
Light than what we know about it. Obviously, we don't know anything about it. Let's crowdsource this baby.
Did she leave?
No, maybe not.
Yeah, she left.
Maybe got a little too aggressive.
Maybe she's coming in.
Well, yeah, you're more than welcome to jump in and explain that.
Yeah. Who is this? This is Nikki.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have to reach out to somebody at Legal Shield, Ivan, and see if they want to come on and describe their
business model.
Oh,
it looks like Nikki. With justice for Gianna.
It might be.
Hey.
Hi.
So no, Legal Shield is so they've been around for a long, long time. When I found them, it was almost like a dream come true. So they do anything, and they're also on call 24/7, like a lawyer that's in your community. Like if CPS doors at their door or you get arrested, you can call them 24/7 for those kind of things, and a lawyer will personally answer the phone. The law firm is going to be a law firm that's in your community, so they have law firms across the United States that work with them. The only thing that's not covered in the monthly fee, and they have different packages, but the only thing that's not covered is family law to retain a lawyer, but they offer a discount on the services. So they offer I think 25% discount on the hourly rate. But other than that, everything's covered as far as paperwork. If you need help filling out paperwork, you can call them to do it, or you can pay a really, really cheap fee for them to do it. You can talk to them about anything, anytime.
Okay.
So yeah, I was wondering, I jumped in really late, literally just jumped in when I asked that question. So I guess, but I've seen you guys talk before though.
Thank you.
I've always kind of asked that question, but never gotten a clear answer on how you guys are different. Because it sounds like you guys are kind of trying to do the same thing, sort of.
Yeah, no, not at all. This is specific to depositions and how to. They're completely different type of system and software. Rather,
what kind of depositions? What?
Personal injury. Depositions are a part of discovery in a lawsuit. You're aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they concept. No, this is a specific part of a lawsuit.
Okay. All right.
But thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem. You know what I would love to see, and a lot that I don't see a lot of, is when, the appeals process and, going into federal court, taking whatever case you have out of state and into federal. That's a process that's very lengthy and expensive, and not that much help out there to do that unless you pay $45,000. Literally, that's how much it costs, $45,000 to have a lawyer to go to federal court. So that would be nice if you you guys could find something for that.
I'll do it for 44. No, I'm joking. I'm.
It's something we should look into.
For one, and we're definitely going to look into that. See, maybe we can have some guests on, basically give us tips and tricks on where we can.
Also, the other thing that I think is few and far between out there is, and this is a hard one because, and I don't know if it'll necessarily apply to you guys, but okay, so our Constitution, right? I know in family law, not in effect. Literally, the judge will tell you that you don't have constitutional rights because they don't consider themselves a court of equity, right? So it's hard to find a lawyer that will actually stand up for your constitutional rights because once they do, they're disbarred. And I mean, you can see it over and over and over again. So that would be nice to try to maybe find some. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I think that doesn't really apply to our.
Yeah, we only focus on legal tech issues in our show, so we don't really discuss those global constitutional or criminal issues unless it somehow is related to using new technology to be able to solve existing issues.
Confused with another one, I think. There's
But thanks for jumping in, Niggy.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Huh?
Oh, you had to.
And so did you have any final questions for Chris before we let him go?
No, that's it, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on.
And I did want to add,
Nick, thanks for spearheading this bad boy.
And I did want to.
I totally took the back seat on you.
No, that's okay. Hey, Nikki, don't worry about it. You brought Legal Shield, so you brought some value to the conversation, even though it wasn't right on point. Chris, anything you wanted to add before we close up for the night?
I don't think so. I think we've covered pretty much everything. So I appreciate you guys for having me on here.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Once again, I'm Nick Rishwain, and my co-host Ivan
Raiklin. And if you want to, I guess I put it in the notes here, if you want to subscribe to our upcoming newsletter, you can do so easily by texting the word Blab Lawyers, all one word, to 33444. And we'll be putting out a newsletter that incorporates what's coming up in future shows as we get more guests lined up, and then also a little brief summary of the show that we had recorded. If you don't have time to actually view the entire show, we'll hit the salient points in the newsletter.
Excellent. Thanks again.
All right. Till next Thursday, Blab Lawyers.